Good evening. On behalf of Kuwait Foundation for the Advancement of Sciences, it gives me a great pleasure to welcome you all to this KFAS speaker event. Our goal is to transform Kuwait into a knowledge-based economy, and we strive to achieve this through the promotion of science, technology, and innovation. Tonight we have arranged to have a special guest joining us to share his insights and expertise. Professor Horacio Falcão is a senior affiliate professor of decision sciences at INSEAD. He will be presenting tonight's talk on the 7 myths of win-win negotiations. We will be closing the talk at 7:45 for A's and Q's. If you wish to ask any questions, you will find a mic on the left side of your seat. Please feel free to use it. I would like now to welcome Professor Horacio to the stage. Please join me in welcoming him.
I had my back to you. I didn't see that there were so many people here. Thanks for coming. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be in your beautiful country. It's my first time here, and it's an honor to be here. So I was asked today to talk a little bit about this topic, which is the myths of win-win negotiation. And the reason why I like this topic a lot is because I'm actually a big fan of win-win negotiation. And yet, I see that a lot of people have problems with win-win negotiation because they misunderstand it. They actually think that win-win is all about being nice. They think win-win is all about being helpful to others and being kind and all of that. And in doing that, when they go to a negotiation, if that doesn't work, then they come to me and say, Horacio, I was a win-lose person. And then I try to do that win-win thing. And then it doesn't work. So now I'm an even more evil win-lose person than before. And so that's actually quite a pity, because in the last 30 years or so, actually since the 80s, so we're going for over 40, 50 years there, people started to hear about win-win when the book Getting to Yes came about and really made win-win something popular in the field of negotiation. Now, when it became popular, a lot of the media picked up on it and identified win-win as this new wave of negotiation that everyone should try, that was better for everyone all the time. And because of that, I wouldn't say that that's fake news, but I would say there was a lot of misinformation, a lot of sound bites, but without a lot of depth to understand what was truly going on, what this win-win thing really meant. And because there was not a lot of depth in understanding of what win-win was, because there was too many sound bites and little jargons, people then developed their own understanding of what win-win was. And in developing their own misunderstanding of what win-win was, what happened was that people started to develop some myths, some pillars of what win-win was supposed to be. And in doing so, the popular culture now has the wrong understanding of this win-win thing is. And then they keep on trying the wrong win-win, and then they get frustrated when it doesn't work because it was not supposed to work that way. And then when they get frustrated that it was not supposed to work, then they don't know the difference between true win-win and not true win-win, and then they just blame win-win for all the mistakes that happened. So you see, part of what we're going to talk about today is this. So let me open it up. Right? I have about half an hour to go through this, so let me try to make it to the point. So you may know these characters. Yeah, SpongeBob, famous character on TV, and Plankton is his enemy. So SpongeBob is this very naive, childlike even individual who sees everything in bright, beautiful colors. And Plankton is the enemy that sees everything in dark tones and sees the world as the evil place where he wants to rule the world, or at least beat the opposition on the other side of the street. And basically, the reason why I'm putting that there is because I asked people, right? I did a survey with over 120 people, and I asked them, so, when you go negotiate, do you do win-win or do you do win-lose? Yeah. And the numbers that I got were this. We got about 45% of the people saying win-lose, and 56.6% of the people saying win-win. You can quickly see that that sums up to more than 100%, which is weird, but some people just said, I do both, so I counted twice. Right? But for me, that number for you might not mean much. For me, that number was very surprising because my experience when I go work with my clients, when I see negotiations on TV, when I observe my students negotiate when they come into my course, is that just about everyone does win-lose all the time. Okay? Now notice, my definition of win-lose and win-win, I actually had a benefit of spending a day with a wonderful group of about 45 people of executives here from Kuwait. And we talked quite at depth about that. But for short, what I want to share with you is win-lose for me is when people choose to use power. And win-win is when people choose to not use power. Okay? In my experience, that bottom line, pretty much every negotiator I see eventually ends up using some power, especially when things get a little harder, especially when they don't get their way the first time. And so once I had that perception of people, a lot of my observation data is that people don't do win-win. But then you have more than 50% of people saying, no, when I go negotiate, I go win-win. Something is missing, right? Something seems wrong. And actually not just a bit, a lot wrong. And so I went on and I did another survey. And I asked these people then to tell me, so what do you understand is win-win? And I asked them to tell me which kind of behaviors they did. So I picked up 7 behaviors that are normally associated with win-win. And I'll read them out for you. You're seeing the graph already. I'll walk you through all of this, don't worry. Right? It's much less complicated than it looks. Do you trust others? So when you negotiate, do you trust others? Do you listen attentively? Do you share your information transparently? Do you give them what other people want? Do you make a fair offer to the other? Do you talk about their competition? And do you commit to arrive at an outcome together? Notice, this one here is reverse coded. Talking about your competition is actually more of a power move. But all the other moves are very much associated with win-win. Would you agree with that? Right? Many times when we hear about win-win, we say we should be transparent, we should be giving, we should listen, we should trust. So usually those are the moves that people associate with win-win. And as you can see here, right, the red is the people when they do win-lose, they say they don't do those moves. Okay? So the 19% here on this first one is that if they say they do win-lose, only about 19% of the people actually think that trusting others is a win-lose thing. But if you see, about 81% of the people actually say they do this when they do win-win. You see the difference? So if I do win-lose, only about 20% of the people think that they trust others. But if they do win-win, about 80% of the people actually say they should trust others. Now, what's the blue one? The blue one was a slightly different question. The question was, do you think this is a behavior you should do if you're doing win-win? You see the difference? The green one is, do you do it? The blue one is, do you think that's the right win-win behavior? And as you can see, in many instances, the blue go even higher than the green. There's this aspirational thing. I should be even doing more of that behavior if I want to do win-win. Whereas here, as you can see, there's a high amount of people who do win-lose because, as I mentioned before, this is more of a win-lose move anyhow. Now, what is the insight that this research or this little survey gave me? The insight that this little survey gave me is that a lot of people trust others because they believe that's the win-win thing to do. A lot of people listen to others because they believe that's the win-win thing to do. A lot of people share their information transparently because they think that's the win-win to do. Do you see the pattern on all of those? So what is that we're learning? What we're learning is that a lot of people do the green bar because they believe through the blue bar that's the right thing to do if you're trying to do win-win. What is my argument? My argument is that's wrong. You see, people are doing the wrong behaviors. These 6 behaviors, remember with the exception of the one there that I highlighted, the competitors, these 6 behaviors are usually perceived as high win-win behaviors. You can see quite high in almost all the dimensions with the exception of giving that what people want. People associate those behaviors a lot with win-win. And here's my argument to you. They're not. They're not win-win behaviors. But because the media has been selling us so much of that, and even unfortunately some academics as well, then people have been doing what they think is win-win, but ultimately is something that doesn't work very well. But unfortunately, then win-win gets the bad rep, gets the bad fame. So what is the argument that we're trying to make here? People say then you shouldn't do win-win because win-win hurts you. If you listen to others, they won't listen to you. If you are transparent, they will take advantage of the information. If you give them what they want, they will take it and run away. And so you know what? Being positive is stupid. Being positive is naive. We shouldn't be positive. But then you go back into win-lose. And so I like this statement because of that. Being positive in a negative situation is not naive if you do it right. That's the argument. The problem is that people are doing the wrong positive. And then if you do the wrong positive in a negative situation, that is naive because you will get hurt because you're doing the wrong thing. And so with that in mind, what are these behaviors that are normally associated with win-win? Just to kind of summarize them for you and make it a little easier to read. People think that if they're doing win-win, they should trust and listen and be transparent and give and be fair and be loyal and commit to an outcome together. This might be less of an obvious picture for you. This is Saint Francis from the Catholic religion. And so basically people would expect a lot of these behaviors from him. But that's the metaphor I make, is if you do these 7 things, you're not doing win-win. You're trying to become a saint. Right? Because this is just too much. Very few people can survive in the real world of competition and business doing all of that all the time. I'm not saying these are bad behaviors per se. They're actually laudable behaviors. They're beautiful behaviors for human beings. Are they equally good and effective for negotiation? And that's the question I want to raise in your mind. So if you do all of these 7 things, as a human being, everyone would admire you. But if you do all of these 7 things in a negotiation and you meet someone who's very much a power-driven negotiator, someone who thinks that the world is a horrible place, that dog eats dog, and whoever is more powerful wins, and that's the law of nature. Strong, right? Power makes might, or might makes right, and all of that. Then if you find someone like that, then you're not going to do well because this person is going to get you and is going to crush you into pieces. And so what is the point? Why does all of that happen? And so what I want to share is this. So this graph, again, is not supposed to be complicated. It's more of a metaphor than anything else. Imagine a scenario where you're going to do a sequence of moves in your negotiation, because that's what you do in negotiation. You do a sequence of moves. Every move will have a potential reward associated with it and a potential risk. Fair enough? Everything you do can either work well for you or can backfire or not generate any results. Now, in a normal world, what happens? If you do a sequence of what we call win-lose move, power moves, then you're going to get negative. In other words, you're being against the other person. You're being power. You're using your power against them to get what you want. You're usually not being very positive towards them. They probably won't appreciate much what you're trying to do towards them. But because you're constantly paranoid that they might do the same back to you, you're constantly anticipating their risk, and you are then hitting them before they can hit you. And then it becomes an exercise in escalation to see who is quicker or who is stronger to beat the other one first or harder. And that leads to some results because ultimately, yeah, it can lead to some results. But as you can see, for a given reward, there's quite a bit of risk, maybe even more than the reward itself. Again, it's just a metaphor for you to get the big picture. Now, many people, most people in the world, will say, yeah, I don't like that very much. That's a tough life. Every day you go to work, you have to be concerned if people are going to try to eat you alive, take your lunch and all of that, and then you have to fight people, and I don't like to be that horrible person that I become when I negotiate. And I read in some magazines and articles that there's this better thing waiting for us called win-win. I want to do win-win. And then you try. And so you go do win-win because the expectation is that if you do win-win, what's going to happen? You're going to get more rewards, more value for lower risk. And how do you get that? And a lot of these magazines and articles and others, they basically say, just be nice to the other person. Be positive and helpful. And then they will be positive and helpful and nice to you back. Right? No, not right. Because some people will be nice back to you. But a lot of people will look at you and go, opportunity. And that's the problem. You see, this win-win that people were doing, that the slide before, the trust, the listen, the give, the transparency, it relies on a certain assumption, a very big assumption for it to work, and one that doesn't hold true all the time. Because if you are expecting that, you assume that there will be reciprocation. This win-win that's being shown right now only works if the other side appreciates what you're doing and does exactly back to you what you did. If the other person doesn't reciprocate, either does nothing or tries to take advantage of you, you end up in a very bad place. And that's where the people who try to do win-win, this win-win, not the true win-win, they get frustrated because they assume reciprocation. Reciprocation might happen once or twice, they might get lucky, but eventually they'll meet someone like Pity the Fool who will try to come and take advantage or punch you on the face, and then what? You're just done. You're frustrated. Actually, now you're bitter because you feel betrayed. You were promised something beautiful and it was denied. You exposed yourself, you made yourself vulnerable, and people took advantage. Now you don't even believe in humanity anymore, and you're having an identity crisis. Okay, I'm exaggerating a bit, but you got the picture, right? And so what happens? As I just shared, this is what we call win-win naive, because it's naive to expect that reciprocation will happen, as opposed to appreciating that reciprocation might happen, but won't guaranteed will happen. And that's my problem with this, because any strategy that requires something you don't control to happen to be successful is a strategy you cannot rely on the majority of the time. Because if that variable plays against you and you don't control it, then you're in a bad place. So what we need is a robust negotiation strategy. One that does not rely on that assumption of reciprocation. One that succeeds even if the other side doesn't do what you want them to do. In other words, this win-win, what we call win-win naive, it's naive because we assume reciprocation. It will be positive. It will treat the other person positively. It will try to increase value so that we have more for everyone. But the problem is what? They become naive. Naive that the other side will not just try to get all of that positivity for themselves in a selfish manner. What happens then? You become the nice guy or the nice gal. People take advantage of you and you become bitter. Not good for anyone. Not for you short term, not for you long term, not good for anyone. And so what do people do? Okay, I don't like being nice. Nice people come last. So let me go back to win-lose. Actually, even more aggressive than before, which is sad because people try to get out of win-lose, went to something wrong, failed because it was wrong, not because you were a bad negotiator, and now you're back to the beginning. But even more bitter, without hope, there's nowhere else to go. The good news is that there is something much better if you get rid of the assumption of reciprocation. If you get rid of that assumption, then you can actually go to what we call true win-win. And true win-win is when we try to be positive, but not naive. That is true win-win. As simply as I can put to you in 3 words. Win-win is not just being nice. Nice means I sacrifice myself to make you happy. That's what a lot of relationships fail. A lot of marriages fail because of that. After a while, couples don't discuss things anymore. And they start to make sacrifices for one another. But one side starts doing a little bit more than the other. And start being too nice to the other. Fine, sure, your way. Okay, your way. Okay, your way. And what is that person expecting? That the other side is recognizing that. The other side might recognize once or twice, but eventually it just becomes the new normal. So you're just doing it because you want to, right? Again, wrong. They're expecting you to reciprocate. But you don't. And so the sacrifice strategy is a very dangerous strategy for relationships in the medium to long term. So true win-win is one that you're positive, but you're not naive that reciprocation will happen without you triggering it. You have to actually trigger the reciprocation. You have to ask for it. You have to make it happen. And you have to reduce the risk that people will just take you for granted, grab the money, and run. So what I'd like to do first is to break down this for you. Right? First, you're positive because you constantly take the lead in creating value. You may have heard already the expression, if you're here for a talk on win-win, of expanding the pie. You will do some information sharing to make sure that we actually get more ideas on the table and get better deals. You absolutely have to do some of that. But you're not going to do that in the hopes that the other side will do it as well. And that's the not naive part. So you will constantly think, and what if they try to take advantage of my move? So you get a little bit of the paranoia of win-lose, that the other side might try to take advantage of you, but you don't turn that into a bitter negative approach where I have to take advantage of you first, otherwise you take advantage of me. No, you have to do better than that. And the approach is, how do I make this a better negotiation for both of us, even if the other side is trying to take advantage of me? Now notice, this is a very high bar. This is not easy. How do I actually make this better for both of us, even if the other side is trying to take advantage of me? Notice, that's not an easy challenge, but it's the best challenge I know. It's the best way to get a good negotiation deal, consistently, negotiation after negotiation. Because if you go negative, like we saw in the win-lose, there's always going to be someone more powerful. If you go win-win naive, people take advantage of you. So unfortunately, like getting good in an instrument, like getting good in an art, like getting good in a sport, there's no shortcut, there's hard work. And that's what I'm advocating to you. But hard work also has to have good direction. So let me give you the direction so that you can choose later on if you want to put the work in. So what are 7 of the problems that people make when they negotiate win-win? What are the 7 myths? First myth, don't trust. Or otherwise, people do trust. So I'm telling you, don't trust. Even if you want to do win-win, don't trust. Why don't trust? Because can I trust everyone I meet to go negotiate? Even if I'm meeting them for the first time and I've never seen them before, can I already trust them? No, I can't. And then if I can't trust them, but I need to trust to do win-win, then I will never be able to do win-win with that person. So someone who wants to do win-win, what do? They try to force themselves to trust someone who maybe is not worthy of that trust. So notice how you blind yourself to the real data and the information you're getting, and you're forcing to create yourself a feeling of trust when maybe that person doesn't deserve. Once you start trusting someone who doesn't deserve, you are now exposed to being taken advantage of. Hold me, and the other person is not ready. Maybe they want to hold you, but maybe they're just not ready. It's not that they don't deserve your trust because they're bad people. Maybe they just don't deserve your trust because they're not competent or capable. At least on that moment, they might not be available. So I'm not trying to say that the world is full of bad people, but the world is full of people, and we are imperfect and sometimes not worthy of trust. If my wife was to trust me to be home every night to help her with the kids, she would have a hard time with that because I can't because of my job. So she can't trust me for that. Not that I'm not a trustworthy person. When I'm home, I try to help. Sometimes I'm not very helpful, but I try. Right? So if you're not going to trust, then what should you do? Right? Trust takes time. I don't have the time to build trust. I meet you. I can't truly trust you just right now. I have to start negotiating with you today. So what happens? I don't trust you. I have to negotiate with you today. For win-win, I need trust. So I can't do win-win. I do win-lose. But if I do win-lose, what happens? I'm being negative towards you. So are we more likely or less likely to build trust now if I'm being negative towards you? I'm less likely. So notice how the very need to have trust in win-win makes me not build trust. So what should we do? And you may remember, let me actually use a word that I like more. Interdependence is a word I used a lot before, but let me try to. You remember that one? Mutualism? From high school. We're going to talk about that later on. But we can talk about it, interdependence as well. So interdependence, the reason why I'm changing the words, because I kind of like the word, but not so much because people start thinking, oh, you need me, I need you. That's not good, actually. Interdependence is we can be better off together. Because if I need you or you need me, there's always going to be the debate who needs the other one more, which again could be a power trip. What I would like to invite you to think here is, can we be better off together rather than not? In other words, will this negotiation make both of us better off than before? That's the idea. You see, so I'm not going to work with you. I'm not going to collaborate with you. I'm not going to win-win with you because I like you, because I know you, or because I trust you, because I don't. I just met you, but I still have to negotiate with you today. However, if I can establish to you in 1 or 2 sentences why this is potentially very good for both of us in concrete terms, then we have more chance of appreciating, okay, there is a reason for this to work. I see why you want this to work. I can understand why I can help you do this work as well. So let's do this. Let's make this happen. And you might be wondering, why did I put this picture up there? It's actually, as you can figure out, it's quite an old picture already. But I've been using it for a while. I like it a lot. This picture, some of you may know or not, it doesn't matter much, which is basically one of the first pictures they took after Obama won the primaries in the US to run for president as a Democrat. Okay, so you may remember, some of you, right, that both of those were fighting to see who was going to be the Democrat candidate for president. And it was actually a very bitter dispute where they said some pretty nasty things about one another during the campaign. Really nasty about one another at the very end of the campaign. Right? And then right after the results come, boom, this picture, both of them smiling. Now, I don't know about you, but if I just lost a big life-changing event like running potentially for candidate of one of the two main parties of my country, I would be devastated. And here it is, those two people smiling at one another. Now, some people might say, well, Horacio, but they're not people, they're politicians. Right? That's fine. But I like to think they still have some feelings. Some, maybe not a full broad. And so, what is my interpretation of this photo? It's an interpretation. I don't know what happened. But I can imagine the following scenario. I can imagine Obama looking at Clinton and saying, this was a bitter dispute and I didn't really like how it went. But that's the game. She knows it. I know it. That's how it happens. Now the game is kind of over. I have a decent chance of becoming president of this country. But what I don't have and what I'm very weak at is the international component. And in my party, there's probably no one as qualified as this lady to take that job and do a wonderful job at it, from my perspective. Not only that, I'm pretty sure she will want to run for president later on. Which now we know it's true as well, but then again, at the time I didn't. So I'm pretty sure she wants to run for president again. So she has actually a strong incentive to what? To do really well, to do a great job as my international person, to shine as a politician. So I'll give her that stage so that she can do really well, because I will maximum run for one re-election. I don't mind if she can come up later on and do it herself. So I get one great person from my party, super qualified to help me out. What is she thinking? She's thinking, I don't like you very much right now. Actually, probably right now, you're the person I hate the most on earth because I just lost to you. Right? Emotions will probably say that. Or at least I would. Right? But then she looks at him and goes, but he's the president, potentially, and it seems like he's going to win pretty easy with a lot of votes, which means that there's going to be a lot of support for his government. And there's one part that he's very weak, which is his international part. And I can help that. And if I can help that, he can give me a platform to shine and run for president later on. So notice, they don't need to like each other. They don't even need to trust each other. Why? Because their interests are aligned. And so that's how we should walk into a negotiation. I will walk into a negotiation looking at you and thinking, why does this make sense to you? Because if I cannot find how does this make sense to you, then I cannot understand how you will behave, and therefore I don't trust you. But if I know that there's something in it for you, then you're much more likely to behave in ways I can predict, and that gives me safety, and that is more win-win. In other words, there's data showing that marriages for love are much more likely to end up in divorce than marriage for interest. When people know exactly what's the one thing that keeps them together, and that's objective and not subjective like trust or love, people are much more likely to stay together. Notice, I'm not saying happier. Stay together. Work together. Do things together. And ultimately, negotiation, that's what we're trying to do relationship-wise. Can we collaborate well together? Trust or no trust, that doesn't matter if there is a sense of interdependence or mutualism. So that's the first myth. I'm doing fine. Okay. So what's the second one? People say, oh, you should listen to the counterparty. No, you shouldn't. Don't listen. Now, of course, you saw from my previous slide as well, I'm not saying ignore them completely, like talk to the hand, I don't want to talk to you. Of course, that's also stupid. That's the win-lose part of it. What I'm saying is don't listen. Why? Because if they're talking about things you don't care about, you can't really listen. You don't care. You won't listen. You can pretend to listen. I understand. But we all know that deep inside, you're just thinking about what you're going to say next. You're just thinking how you're going to shoot down their idea, which is horrible, by the way. How couldn't they figure that out yet? That's why they need me here to bring some light into those stupid heads. Not you, the example. Yeah? The example. So what should you do? You see, the problem with listening is that listening is a very passive skill. It doesn't have a goal. It doesn't have an objective. As a negotiator, you can't go in so passive because then the other person takes control of you. What you should be doing is, instead of listening, you should be learning. A dog can listen, but a true master can learn. Okay? And learning gives you an objective. Learning gives you a focus. Learning actually creates inherent curiosity that somewhat forces you to internally align with the conversation, ask questions to make sure you truly understand, and learn something. Because it is from learning that you find new opportunities and risks that will help you negotiate better. Just listening is not good enough. You need to be curious to understand what else is there that I don't know. Because who cares about what you already know? What you already know, you already know. So don't listen, learn. Take it deeper. Take it different. Then what else? And this one my students of today already heard. Don't be transparent. Right? Because transparency is too much light. It's the kind of too much information. And many times information that doesn't help, and many times information that can hurt. Imagine I come to you and I say, so what's the maximum you're willing to pay? Should you share that information? And the answer is, absolutely not. But wait a minute. Isn't win-win all about being transparent? That's the point, isn't it? Being transparent about your maximum willingness to pay is naive. Because then how much am I going to charge you? Just a little bit more over that because I think you're lying. Do you see the problem there? So what you do is, because you're thinking that that's what win-win does, then you become transparent. But in doing so, you hurt yourself. So you shouldn't be transparent. Imagine the following scenario. And sorry if that offends anyone. I really don't mean to. But it's a true story. I'm walking down. I'm from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. I have a wife. She was my girlfriend a long time ago. So we're holding hands and we're walking down the beach of Rio de Janeiro. Am I sharing with my wife everything that's going through my mind right now as I walk down the beaches of Rio de Janeiro? No. Big no. And do I ask her what she's thinking about? Big no. Because I can see and I know. It doesn't matter because it's not relevant. Ultimately, whatever is going through our minds, our fantasies that our minds are just coming in, it will just hurt. If we tell each other, it will just hurt each other because we're going to read too much into it. It's not helpful. It doesn't bring light to the relationship. It's not even that important. So if someone asks you, so can you walk away from this negotiation? If you say yes, it's hurtful. If you say no, it's hurtful. Just to the different person. It doesn't help the negotiation. It just hurts. So what do we need to do as negotiators is to identify the information that hurts and the information that helps. And therefore, being transparent allow both of those to come through. And that's the wrong approach in win-win. In win-win, you shouldn't be transparent. Again, I'm going to ask for your high school days. You should be translucent. Nice, no? Translucent. It's a cool word, by the way, translucent. Which means what? Not everything comes through, just what sheds light, just what is helpful. So what's not helpful, you don't share. What's my limit, my ability to walk away? Because just puts pressure on them or exposes me too much. What I will share is, what are the things we can do together? How can we construct better solutions? Here are the different ideas. Here are some of the things that are important for me in this deal. I might not say what are my priorities. It doesn't matter. I'll say what's important. And we'll work together towards that. You see, a win-win negotiator is under no obligation to share everything transparently. But you will be smart to share the things that add value in a translucent fashion. Then, people say, oh, if you're going to do win-win, if there's something easy for you to give to the other side, you should just give, right? Just give. What's the problem of just giving? they might just say thank you and walk away. Some of them might not even say thank you. You may have seen, this is the movie Wall Street 2. I don't know if you've seen this movie. It's actually written as drama. For me, it was a horror movie. And I'll share it with you why. So for those of you who saw, I'll share something. For those of you who didn't see, there will be a little bit of a spoiler here, but not too big. Well, it is big, but still, you will live. And so basically this is Gecko. He's the villain of Wall Street 1. He then is arrested. Wall Street 2 starts with him kind of coming out of jail and try to rebuild his life, but he doesn't have a lot of cash anymore. But he actually transferred a lot of money to his daughter, that lady over there. His daughter is completely different from him. Instead of being a Wall Street finance tycoon, she's an NGO kind of person, a do-gooder. Okay. Now, what's the problem? He then keeps on convincing his daughter, trust me, I'm a changed man. Give me all that money, millions that she has, so that I can start life again in a nice way. And he actually does what? And if you do that, what's going to happen? You're going to have your daddy back a bit, right? So he uses that relationship. Didn't you want to be closer to your daddy? Your daddy needs your help. Come on, help me. So of course, right? It's her father. Eventually what happens? She gives him the money. What does he do? Because he cannot operate in the US anymore, right? There are all sorts of regulations. He went to jail because of that. So he grabs the money, moves to London, opens a fund, and never sees her again. His daughter. There's another scene on that movie that is actually even more scary than that example, which is the hero of the movie, a young finance guy, comes to the boyfriend of her, by the way, comes to his boss at the time and asks, what's your number? Some of you may remember that passage. And the boss says, what do you mean? And the young guy says, well, everyone has a number, right? Like whenever you reach that number, like say 1 million, 100 million, 1 billion, that will be enough, right? Like, what's your number? What's your target? And the guy turns to him and there's a focus on his face. Imagine you're focusing on my face right now. And the guy says, more. My number is more. I've had nightmares with that. Because what is this guy saying? I will never stop. No matter how much I make, no matter how much I get, I will never stop. Many of us negotiate thinking that people have a number in mind and that if we just give that little extra, they will calm down. But what we do is that when we give that little extra, they just go, there might be more in there. Let me go get it. You basically teach people to ask for more. And so, of course, it ends up hurting you because you're naive in expecting that they're just going to go, oh, wow, you know what? That looks like enough. Thank you very much. I'll leave, even though I think you have more to give. So instead of giving, what you should do is you should exchange. Yeah, I'll give you some of that if you give me some of this. Again, it's not that you're not going to be helpful. You're still trying to be positive. You're just trying to be not naive, remember? And so the idea here, you may know this, right? This example. Have you seen this picture before? Right? This is the Egyptian or the Nile crocodile. Right? So a crocodile you will find a lot in the Nile. Now with the dam, right? You find it before. But basically, you may have, again, high school or not, or maybe nature programs you might have seen in TV. What happens? This crocodile opens his mouth and lays on the sun to bake. Right? And then suddenly this bird comes, and if all of the different trees and bushes and beautiful places they could land, they land inside the crocodile mouth. It sounds unappealing, if anything because of the bad breath. But then again, why would the bird go inside the mouth of a crocodile? To eat, right? But why does the crocodile not eat the bird? Because while eating, and you're saying it, and I can hear you out, it's cleaning the teeth of the crocodile like a hygienist or a dentist would, and therefore preventing the crocodile from having inflammation and itches. Because as you can imagine, when the crocodile eat, some meat stays there, and it might go rotten. And if you think about it, just think about it. The crocodile hands are not big enough to pick their own teeth. So they need the bird to help out. Now here's the question that always puzzled me when I saw this image. Why, after the bird did all the cleaning, the crocodile doesn't go, snack? Right? It would be nice. Dental cleaning plus snack. That's what my kids have when they go to the dentist. They go to the dentist, then they get a lollipop. Then I look at the dentist like, you giving sugar? You just, right? I'd say, well, the kids have to come back, no? So they give the lollipop. And why does the crocodile not eat the bird? Because in an intuitive, instinctive level, the crocodile appreciates that if I eat this bird, other birds don't come to my mouth anymore. I don't have the cleaning, we all lose. Why do I like this example so much? Because a lot of people say, oh, but if you're big or if you're small, you need... No. The bird is 1,000 times more fragile than the crocodile. And yet, if it adds enough value on the exchange, the crocodile behaves. So it's not about who's big and who's small. It's about, can you bring enough value to the table? And can you ask for enough value in return? The moment you establish that link, then you don't have to give anymore. You can exchange. And notice, the value for one might be bigger or smaller than the value for the other. It just needs to be enough so we don't fall into the trap of more. What else? People say, no, but life should be fair and we should focus on fairness. And I went to law school, and for 5 years, I tried to learn what fairness was. And then I left because no one taught me. Because it's too subjective. Lawyers, judges, they all quarrel about what is fair, and every time they come up with a different decision. Normally, when we focus on fairness is it fair to me? We never really care about what is fair to the other side. And therefore, of course, the other side notices that, gets angry and frustrated. I doubt you've ever been in a negotiation where the other side said, no, okay, you know what? We shouldn't do that because that's not fair to you. It's great for me, but not fair to you. Right? That usually doesn't happen. So what should we focus on? If we're win-win, we shouldn't be focusing on fairness. It's too subjective. We should be focusing on common sense. There's a beautiful book, right, from Viktor Frankl, who was a survivor of the Nazi camps. And he wrote this book, The Search for Common Meaning. And he says, bottom line, deep down inside, every human being on the planet is looking for meaning. And if we can make that common, then we can hold hands together and find solutions. So if we're exchanging, we need to exchange things in ways that it makes sense to both sides. Because if it only makes sense to one side, the other side will say no and walk away. So don't try to be fair because you're going to be seeing the world only from your perspective. But if you're looking for common meaning, you're bound to have to ask, does that make sense to you? And then you understand the world from their perspective and yours, and then you can find a solution that is sustainable, that is acceptable. We're almost done. There are 2 more myths to go away. So the other one is people say, oh, let's get a win-win outcome. How do you know you're going to get a win-win outcome? You don't know what I want. You don't know what I have to give. You don't know what I have to ask. It's almost like going into a race and say, I'm winning it. How do you know you're going to win? How do you not know if the other person prepared more than you or is better than you? You can't commit to an outcome, people. You don't control the outcome of a negotiation. There's the other person. So what do you commit to? If I say, hey, I am committing to a win-win outcome, what did I just give you? I gave you enormous power because now I limited myself, but you can do whatever you want. So that's naive, you see? You can take advantage of me. So what should we commit to? If you're going to commit early, don't commit to the outcome because you don't know what the outcome will be. You're committing unilaterally, putting yourself in handcuffs and giving the other side too much power. So if you're going to commit early to something, you should commit to the effort. What does it mean? There's this, I don't know if you know this, is one of the, so you know that Brazil is very famous for football, as of late for the wrong reasons. But Brazil is also quite famous for volleyball. Maybe you know about that less, maybe more, I don't know. But Brazil has one of the winningest teams of volleyball of the last 30, 40 years. What they won over 90% of their games and a high majority of championships they participated in. And one of the reasons that people claim happen is because the coach has the certain mentality that follows this advice. He doesn't say, whoever wants the trophy more wins. Because everyone wants the trophy really bad. He says, whoever wants to train and practice more wins. You see, once the game is on, you don't control the outcome of the game. But what you do control is how much time you're going to put in preparation. And he's known for winning a gold medal or the world championship and the next day at the hotel, at the parking lot, because there was no better place to practice, asking his team to practice. And they're like, we just won the world championship. Exactly. The next one is coming. So don't commit to an outcome because you can't control the outcome, but commit to your own effort. What can I do? I commit to behave this way. You do whatever you want. I will do this. That you can commit without putting yourself in a corner. But if you commit to an outcome, you have to deliver things you may not be able to deliver, and eventually you end up having to overpay. The other one is, many times, and I would assume in this region this is a big thing, because it's a big thing in South America as well, where we're very relationship orientated as well. And basically we tend to be very loyal to people. What's the problem? What if someone offers a better offer to them? What are they going to do? They will probably walk away. So was it worth being loyal? I'm not saying be disloyal forever. Please don't hear me saying that. That's the win-lose side. I'm saying don't be blindly loyal to people. So instead of being loyal to the person, be what? Faithful on the process. Because if you do true win-win, if you follow the things that I've mentioned so far that you should do, then if you have faith that these things will actually yield you to a good conversation and good solutions, even when things are looking poorly, like when you make an investment, for a while the investment doesn't yield, but after a while, then things come better on the other side if you made a good enough investment. You have to be faithful that you made a good decision on that investment, otherwise you're going to sell before it starts giving you money. Similarly in negotiation, if you make enough good moves, like the moves that I'm suggesting for you here, eventually, even if things are dark right now, even if things are not looking great, eventually the sequence of those moves will start pushing you into a place of more value and less risk. So I'm not saying be blindly faithful either. I said be faithful to the process. Believe that it will deliver. Don't panic and change the first sign that things might not be working, because that means you're not investing enough continuously and you're not being enough patient. So let's get to our end. Should we do win-lose? Should we do win-win? Should we do win-win? Should we be positive? To be or not to be? That's the question. But as you can see, that's the famous Shakespeare saying. I changed the saying a little bit just by changing the punctuation. Because the original saying is, to be or not to be? That's the question. I'm changing the question for you now. To be or not? I'm already giving you the answer. To be. That's the question. In other words, it's not about being win-win or not being win-win. It's about being win-win, but how to be win-win? And that was the question we just answered. So with that, let me just invite you to stay positive. Nah, it didn't work. No, there was an animation there for you. Well, then a little plane will come by saying, not naive, right? It did not work, but that's it. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah? Thank you for having me. Much appreciated. Thanks. Thanks for taking so late a time in your evening. So I think now we still have a few minutes for questions. I think you have your microphones on the side. So to avoid 2 or 3 people speaking at the same time, if you just raise your hand and then we will direct it to you, and I'll be glad to answer some questions if you have them. Please go ahead.
My name is Yusuf. I work in Management Information Systems, or MIS. You said that in order to get an actual win-win in your negotiation, you should not be transparent. You said it's better to be translucent.
Correct, I did say that.
And I think in my life, one of the most common negotiations are job interviews, either as an interviewer or as an interviewee. Yeah. And in my opinion, if the interviewee that I'm interviewing is not being completely transparent on what they can do, what they cannot do, what they have done, and what is their salary, for example, I wouldn't trust them. They're being vague or they're being mysterious. In the same way, I think if I was being interviewed and I was asking, if I was the interviewee, and I wouldn't be transparent about what the job is, I wouldn't provide a job description, or for example, I would give a vague salary. I think it's not good overall for the. I think absolute transparency should be present, not only translucence. What is your opinion on the matter?
Thank you for being so direct about this and giving me the opportunity to clarify. Because if that was the understanding that people got, that was not what I meant to say. I agree with you. If I go to a job interview and say, what's the job all about? And you go like, well, it's about work. I agree with you. Then it's like, dude, what are you hiding, right? And I can't trust you. And I said, don't trust, right? But even that level is like, okay, but that's distrust. Like, I think you have a hidden agenda. So notice that I said you should share what helps. You should not share what doesn't help. So for example, imagine you're being the interviewee as you gave the example. And I were to say, what's the absolute minimum you can live with so that I can pay you the least amount of salary I can afford? Go ahead. You said absolute transparency. Please answer my question right now.
Yeah, that's a difficult question to answer.
That's right. You see, because that's a question that is very unfair to you, isn't it? It gives me a lot of power at your expense. So that's why I'm saying that what you should say is, help me understand why I should answer that question. Help me understand how is that going to help me get a meaningful deal, a reasonable deal. If you want to talk about fair, fine. I already told you fair is kind of like wishy-washy. But it's like, help me understand how this is going to actually get me a salary that I will feel well compensated. I can tell you what's the absolute minimum, but if you use that to actually put my salary at that level, I'm going to feel very mistreated, taken advantage of. And I don't know if I'm going to last here long, which is not my interest. My interest is actually to stay here for a long time. So can we talk about something else? You see, so notice how I'm being translucent. I didn't also say in a very transparent manner, say I were in your shoes and say, wow, that's a horrible question to ask. You are a bad person, because that's what I will be thinking. You're trying to take advantage of me. I'm a poor employee coming in, starting my life here at work, and you're this employer with a big company, all that money, and you're truly asking me what's the absolute least I can live with? Really? Have you seen yourself in the mirror today and not thrown up? Wow. That's what's going to be going through my mind. Am I going to share that with you? No. Am I being more clear now with the example?
Yeah, excellent answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No, but your question was very good. I really appreciate that. It helps us to clarify the point. So I'm not saying be opaque. I'm not saying being vague. I say share very well what you think is helpful. Here are all the good things I can bring to the job. Here's some things I might need some help with to deliver better. Tell me more about the job. What are the resources you bring to help me out? All of that conversation should happen. What I also shouldn't say is what? Well, you know that what you're offering me right now is just about borderline, so I think after I leave here, I'm going to try to interview with a couple more people to see if I'll leave. I also won't share that because it won't help. Helpful? Thank you. I think there are a couple, actually there are 3 hands here and then 1 there. So if you don't mind, I'm going to, and then I'll come to you. So why don't we go down up so I keep a sense of order, right? So why don't you go first?
Oh, thank you very much. Interesting talk.
Thank you.
I was wondering about the survey study that you're doing all this and coming all this wonderful outcomes here for us.
Yeah.
Was it applying to age and sex and level of expertise to the sample survey that you have conducted? That's
Okay,
one.
so thank you. So going deeper on the data, so it's about 120 people, as I mentioned. I would argue, so everyone had at least about 6 to 7 years of business experience. And there was a significant crowd, I would say about half of them were established senior executives, and about half were MBAs at INSEAD, which need about at least 2 years of experience to get in, but the group I was dealing with had a higher average than that. As for ladies in the group, about 35% of the data, if not, 35%, 36, I'm not remembering 100%. It was some time ago. So age, as I said, so the lower group was somewhere between the 25, 30 year bracket, and then the older group was somewhere between the 40 to 50 bracket, about half and half.
Do you think that these parameters that we just shared will influence the outcome of your 7 myths or not?
Sorry, what?
Like
if those variables I just mentioned?
Yeah.
Well, I try to get a nice distribution of age. I got a really good distribution of nationalities, over 45 nationalities. I got a nice distribution of industries, different place in finance, consulting, lots of different industries, heavy, fast mover consumer goods, infrastructure, even a few people from government and NGOs. So I think there was quite a bit of a randomized split on a lot of those dimensions. Okay, could we get 50-50 gender-wise? Well, maybe we could, but at INSEAD, we have a little bit of a smaller proportion of women than 50-50. And therefore, our alumni community also has a little bit of that kind of bias there. So That's the sample I explored. So if you were to say, is there any bias on your sample? Yeah, they all are somewhat INSEAD linked. But I would assume that's not necessarily a bad thing. Right? We don't know.
One more thing
Please.
regarding the trust versus respect.
Sorry?
Versus respect.
Okay, fair enough.
Is that the same?
No. Yeah? So I can respect someone I don't trust. Right? Because respect is, I'll pay attention, I'll defer to you a little bit, I'll show you that I value you as an individual, period. It doesn't mean I'm going to blindly do things for you without checking or creating guarantees or things of sorts. So respect means you have the benefit of the doubt. Trust means I'll do things without data. So I see them as different. Yeah? Thank you. Please.
Thank you, sir, for
You're welcome.
your procedure, when to win. We can use it on all our life. I mean,
Oh, okay.
only in there is a problem with claims or construction or just all our life.
Actually, my experience is yes. I've been using win-win, the true win-win, not the not naive, the positive not naive win-win in all areas of life with my wife and my kids, at work, actually to a point where I've been doing that with my clients. So I'm not saying that sometimes you cannot do win-lose. You can. But I've been finding that this approach gives me higher value on average. And therefore, why not? Right? Across industries, across countries, as you may know, or not, I don't know. I was actually born in the US, grew up in Brazil, lived in Asia for 17 years. Now I'm half based here, half in Europe. Here meaning in the GCC region. And so I've been negotiating all over the world, culture, industry, etc. And I have not yet found one place where this doesn't work. I found places where it might work a little better, others that work a little less. So for example, if you're trading commodities, there's less leeway for value creation, right? The margin for negotiation is very small, and therefore sometimes just other methods might work a little bit better. But anything that has a little bit more subjectivity, anything that goes beyond a very commoditized exercise, I usually find that this is a superior process. You're very welcome. Thank you. And I think there was another hand further up. Oh, there are two. Okay. I'll get one, the one that came in first. Then I'll come to this gentleman who's been waiting. And then I will go to the other side because I need to also give some attention to the other side. And then I'll come back to you. Okay? So please go ahead, Yusuf.
Yes. In terms of change of heart, sometimes you get a deal done, you negotiate and you move on with the deal, and then there is a change of heart.
Yeah.
Even if you have a deal written in documents.
Yeah.
But the change of heart will change the effort, will affect the ultimate goal. So how can you adjust?
Adjust what? The change of heart?
I mean, the ultimate goal is to proceed with the initial deal, right?
Well, I don't know. For one person, yes, but for the person who had the change of heart is no.
Exactly. So
from which position you're asking the question? From the person who had the change of heart or from the person who didn't?
Both ways.
Okay, because then the answer is different. See?
Okay.
If you are the person who changed your heart, I think it will be win-win of you, positive, not naive, to turn to the other person and say, we closed the deal under certain expectations. Since we started the deal implementation, I found out a lot of different, or at least some significant information that proves that that deal is not as balanced as I thought it was. Given that, the spirit of the deal was that both of us will do well. But as I'm seeing right now, that's not true for me anymore. With that in mind, do you mind if we change the deal? In other words, I will try to explain the reasons that led to the change of heart and try to use that as data to show to the other side, as objectively as I can, that there was an imbalance since the closing of the deal to today, and that should be fixed in the spirit of a good negotiation. They might still say no, but that's what I would do. Okay? So I would renegotiate. From the side of the person who wants the deal to continue, what would I do? I would ask, it seems like you're not complying. Can you help me understand why? Are you just a bad person? I wouldn't say that, I would think, right? Are you just bad at complying? Some people are actually very good in intentions, but bad in implementing, right? Then maybe I need to help you. Or did something change? So I will give you the freedom to tell me what's going on. Why? Because if I see different behaviors, normally what I do is I try to control you. But I can never really control the other side. So much better to open the channel, learn, remember, not listen, just learn. And when I learn, now I know what's the new reality. I can come up with a new solution and say, okay, I still need you to do this for me. What do we need to do now to make that happen? Right? Oh, you need to pay me a lot more money. Well, maybe I can't do this. Can we look at something else? But I will have the conversation with you. I will try to find what? I'll try to exchange value. Okay, so if you need more, then I also need some more somewhere else, even if it's not monetary, more guarantees or something like that, so that you don't have another change of heart and ask for even more money again, right? So I need to be careful. That's me being non-naive. If I let you open once and then you ask for more money and I give it to you just that easily, what happens? If I just give, you learn, let me ask for more and more and more and more, and then you never stop. And who started that? I did, by giving you without asking for exchange. So I would open the channel and invite exchange to change the deal in a way that you can live with. I won't impose the old deal because I can clearly see it's not working, but I won't either just give what you want because then it just rewards bad behavior. So both sides of the table. Does it help? Yeah? Thank you. Okay, so I'll take this gentleman who's been waiting for a long while, and then I'll take the hands from this lady in front of me here.
You said you've been waiting some time to answer my question. I've been waiting for you to talk for 50 years. What took you so long?
Thank you so much. My parents were not quick enough. I'm almost there though, 50.
No, I do have a question.
Please do.
To what extent can lying and cheating be used in a negotiation to get a very positive outcome for both parties?
Ooh, for both parties. So I'm thinking about my kids now. When I tell them that Santa Claus exists and things like that. Well, so I argue that it's quite limited. Lying and cheating can be very powerful, literally powerful in the sense that they do work if you do it well, right? Remember, you may not do it very well, but if you do it well, to get individual gain. That very much, I see all the time. You see politicians, unfortunately, doing that a lot. You see CEOs of company lying to their employees. No, there's no merger going on until there is. No, this is the last time we're going to fire people until there's another layoff, right? And now, so the problem for me is that for both sides, only if there's truly a difference in appreciation and understanding of reality. But that usually also implies a certain level of arrogance and a certain level of paternalism, which might or not be good for the relationship. So for example, sometimes my kid, very young, 4 years of age, the dog dies. Do I come and say, the dog died? Maybe that's what I should do, no? But a lot of parents will say what? Oh, the dog ran away. He's going to live with an uncle at a farm far away, but he's fine and things. Now, notice you're doing that out of a kind heart. It's still a lie, though. You're doing that to protect people. But there's also a certain arrogance in thinking what? That person can't handle the truth. And so we also need to be very careful because good intentions can be quite dangerous as well. And so I am a big advocate of not. Okay? Even if I think it will be better for both of us, I think it's very difficult to believe that by lying and cheating, you can generate something that's good for both of you. It's usually good for you today and good for your conscience that you think, oh, I was doing that to protect them. But if you were to ask them, most of them will say, I would prefer to know the truth. Right? For example, let me give you a very personal example, which is an exception to what I just said. I said to my wife, long time ago, this is very personal, huh? So I'm telling it just to you. 200 people. But it is very personal. I never said it before. I said to her, it was a bar conversation. A lot of friends were talking about. If you cheat on me any day and you don't truly intend to leave me, don't tell me. Only tell me if you're going to leave me. Because if you're not going to leave me, you're going to leave me with all the thoughts about it, and you're just transferring your guilt into my pain. You live with the guilt. Don't give it to me. Right? But if you're going to leave me, then fine, then go ahead. Short of that, tell me everything. Right? So I asked them, do you want to know? So for example, once I came to a friend of mine, and he was with this lady, and he was about to get married with her. And I thought they had nothing in common. Absolutely nothing in common. like nothing in common, right? But they seem to be going on. And eventually he came to me and asked, should I get married to her? That's actually was my answer for a while. I was just quiet. And in my mind is like, I trust this guy. He's a strong guy. He's one of my very, very best friends for a very long while. So I think I should say, he asked. I never volunteered. He asked. So what did I say? She's a nice person. She truly is a nice person. You are also a nice person. I just don't think you guys go well together at all. You are someone who needs a lot of chemistry to make things work, and there's zero between the two of you. Actually, if there's anything like minus chemistry, that's what you guys have. I didn't say it that way. I said it nicely, but just for you. And he goes, thank you. Thank you very much. And then what did he do? He came to her and said, I'm breaking up with you because Horacio told me to. What a friend, huh? And then what happened 3 months later? They got married. And I was invited to be the best man. Can you hear? Can you understand that? And then what happened? 3 years later, they divorced. And what was the reason? Minus chemistry. Right? Now notice, I'm not a relationship guru, but it's your best friend, you know. You see, so I preferred to go through all of that because now he knows what? When he really needs the truth, he can come to me. Even if it hurts. Even if for 3 years his wife hated me. Never invited me for a dinner. Of course, it makes sense, no? Why would you invite the person who said don't marry her? I get it. I ran that risk. Would it be nicer for me to lie? Well, you seem to like her. She's a good person. Go ahead. Yeah, dude. Yeah, whoa. So I chose not to. I'm not saying everyone should. Okay? That's a personal choice of mine. One more question.
Hi. In regards to the aspect of positivity, is that some kind of undertone of presuming that the other party also wants to add value to the equation? Okay, so that's a wrong person. No, don't go there.
No.
Okay. Now the other part of that.
No. Now you're going to see this.
Okay.
There you go. No assumption of reciprocation. Okay? Remember what was that? Oops, sorry, the other way. You're saying, do we need to be positive, the assumption of reciprocation? And the whole point that I'm saying is positive, not naive. If you just go positive expecting that the other side wants it as well, it's not going to work many times. Okay? So that's the exact thing that I'm asking. The whole lecture was to try to move you away from that expectation and then give you some very objective ways on how to do it. Because the moment you expect people to reciprocate is the moment you become vulnerable. Is the moment that people can use your good moves against you. Your positive, well-intentioned moves to take advantage of you. So when I do something, when I don't lie to people, I don't expect them to not lie to me. I actually expect them to lie to me. When I help them get more money, I don't expect them to take time of their own to help me get more money. I negotiate their time to them get me more money in an exchange. You see? So I don't expect reciprocation. I negotiate reciprocation. It's very different. The moment you expect, you're just hoping that God will come in and go, inshallah. Fair enough? I think we need to go, but as I said, I'll be more than glad to stay here a little longer and answer a few questions to you. Yeah? It's not for me to decide. You don't need to negotiate with me. You negotiate with her. So you take her, you bribe her, and maybe she will allow. For everyone else, thank you so very much for coming in your evening. It's much appreciated. It's so good to see so many people with a passion for this topic. Wishing you wonderful negotiation. Thank you. I do. The name of my book is called Value Negotiation. Just do my name, Horacio Falcão, on Amazon. There's one book called Value Negotiation. That's it. Negotiation.